So we are live. Okay, give me a minute.
No problem.
Okay, so we can start now. Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm just going to introduce us. So, in case you are new here, this is the Product Hub Africa community, and we're hosting this webinar to teach you how to manage your finances as a tech person, even if you are not making tech money yet, at least to manage your finances. So, if you can hear some background noises, I'm sorry. I just have to quickly go somewhere to do this. So, I'll call on our guest speaker now. Abdulmumeen is a financial coach. I think there's a place where you can drop your comments. So he's a financial coach, and he's going to be teaching us today. He's going to be coaching us on everything we need to know about finance, about investment, about savings, about how to spend your money. So without further ado, because of our time, I'd like us to go straight into that. Mumin, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. Good evening. I hope you all had a nice day. I obviously had a nice day because Morocco won and I'm here now. So my name is Abdulmumeen Ameen. I know it's catchy, but you can call me Abdul for short. So I'm doing my masters in the UK here at University of Bradford, where I'm studying financial technology. Before that, I did economics at undergraduate level at the University of Ilorin, which is where I met our dear founder. And um, in short, it's been a friendship worth having. So um, that's the kind of that's a background on me, as you can see, or as well. Um, Dark as coal, and I have curly hair. Just to give you a physical description of myself, if you can't see. So as she said, I'm going to be your finance coach for tonight. I'm going to take you through your journey to financial freedom. Please bear with me. I'm trying to share my slides. I don't know what's going on. So, before we begin, as I said, I'm still trying to introduce my slides. Can you guys put in the chat? I think there's an opportunity to put in the chat what you guys think you'll be getting from this session, what you expect from this session. Can you guys please put that in the chat? I hope you all can hear me. If you can't, please let me know that you can't hear me. Okay, yeah, I can see that you all can hear me. Ah, you expect to manage your finances very well. Please bear with me and still. Sorry, can we all see the slides now? Okay. Okay. So I apologize for the delay. So let's get started. So as you can see, the topic is your journey to financial freedom. So we're going to go through four sections, which are terms in financial literacy, your pathway to financial freedom, and introduction to investment, as well as money rules. Now, so let's begin. There are many terms in finance, investment, all of it. But if I have six for you, and if you understand these six, oh, the slides are blurred. Sorry. How do I do that? Sorry, I'm trying to sort out the slide issue. I don't know what's going on here. Can we all see this? Sorry, can we all see this now? All right, I think we all can see now. I've seen a couple of yeses. Once again, I apologize. So, so let's get started with So the six terms I'll be defining for you are fin- financial statements, assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. So what is a financial statement? So financial statement, a quick summary is it's a record that gives a snapshot of your financial situation. If someone takes a look at you and then they take a look at your financial statement, they should be able to assess how stable you are financially. If you're a company, it will be divided into four parts where you have the income statement, statements of assets and liabilities, cash flow, and statement of changes in equity. But as an individual, what you have in your financial statements is simply assets, liabilities, income, and expenditure. If you didn't hear me before, I said the six financial terms we'll be looking at are financial statements, assets, liabilities, income, expenditure, and cash flow. So we've defined what the financial statement is. So, like I said, the importance, I would believe the question you'd be asking is why should I have a financial statement then? First, say for the first reason is would be accountability. In your journey to financial freedom, the most important trait outside discipline that you can have is accountability to yourself as a person. So to be able to access how stable you are financially or where you are financially, what you need to have is a financial statement that accesses yourself. And I know a lot of us are from Nigeria. If you go to take a loan in the bank, so long as you can prove that you have an asset that can cover the liability you want to take on, you're good. But I live in the UK. Here in the UK and in the US, what you need is a financial statement if you are to secure a loan. You have to have a financial statement so the bank can access you. If you don't have one, it reduces the chances of the bank giving you access to a loan because it then means you're financially not prudent or financially reckless. But if you do have a financial statement, it shows a certain level of responsibility where then the bank can then trust you with the finance that you want to have or that you want to access. Now, the next thing we have is asset and liability. Now, as you can see, an asset is an economic resource that holds value to a person, business, or whoever holds it. And the liability is also a resource, but then that leads to outflow of money. Now, can you guys put into the chat what you think are examples of assets? Let's give couple of, let's say, 1 minute for you guys to put example of assets and liabilities. So you can just put whatever you think is an asset, put in brackets assets, whatever you think is a liability, you put into the bracket beside it liability into the chat. Let's give 2 minutes for that. Well, I can see some really, really nice examples. I can see land, I can see house, I can see gold. Well, let me give you a simple analysis that will define whether you have an asset or a liability. Which way is the cash flowing? Which is why the sixth term is cash flow. Which way is the cash flowing is what depends whether you have an asset or a liability. If the cash is flowing into your pocket, you have an asset. If the cash is flowing out of your pocket, you have a liability. So for the one who says his house is an asset, where is the money going? If you have a house, you have to pay electricity bills, maintenance, all of that. So the cash is flowing out. So you don't have an asset, you have a liability. But if you then have a house that you rent out for people to use, that is generating income for you. So there you have an asset. If you have a car, it's a liability in the sense that it takes money from you. You have to fuel it, you have to maintain it. It's a liability. But say you're an Uber driver, you take the car around, you take customers, you're a taxi driver. It's a different scenario there in which you're using the car to generate income for yourself. So whenever you buy something to evaluate whether if it's an asset or a liability, you look at where is the cash flowing. So is the cash going out or it's going in? So whenever you buy anything and you want to know, do I have an asset or a liability? Is the cash coming in or it's going out? Now we have income. Income is first I'll define expenses because expenses is expenses. Expenses is the coffee you bought this morning. You have income here. You have expenses here. Expenses is the coffee you bought this morning, the petrol you buy, the subscription you pay. All of these things are expenses. Anything you can think of like that that you use in your daily life, groceries, movies, all of these things are expenses. Now, the reason why we have to take some time to define income is because we have different types of income. Income is just money you get for doing different things, your salary, your wages, your dividend payments. All of these are income. Now, income is divided into three. I've divided this into three for you. You have, I hope you can see, you have passive, you have earned income, and you have capital gains. Now, what is passive income? Like, I believe we all know what being passive means. I know the most because I have a very passive expression. All my life, people tell me like I look like I'm interested in nothing. But I'm interested in things. Personally, I'm interested in finance and football. So passive income is something that requires little effort. For example, if you have rental property, you're not going, unlike your work where you physically go in and you put in effort 9 to 5, your rental property, once you list it on and you hire your and you have people rent the apartment, you don't need to go there, you don't need to do anything. At the end of the month, they pay you your rent. That's passive income. If you buy stocks or you buy bonds, for those of us who don't know what stocks are, stocks represent part ownership in a business, in a public business. Public means it trades on the stock exchange. So for example, Dangote trades on the stock exchange. So once you buy a stock, it means once you buy a stock, it means you're an owner. You're a part owner in the company. That's what having a stock means. So bonds represent liability to the company. So if you buy a bond, the company's bond that you buy gives you interest per month or every quarter, depending on what you agree upon. So that those two. So you have a question. I saw a question that says if it's both ways. What do you mean by if it's both ways? If you can just type that, I'll reply you. I can see a question that says if it's both ways. So stocks and bonds, where if you buy a bond, you get interest. Okay, yeah. Someone says what is a share? So for example, I start a company now, and shares and stocks can be used interchangeably, by the way, just so you know. So for example, I start a company now, say Abdulmumeen Enterprises. So I start the company, it's growing, but then I have no money to expand by myself. I can see the opportunity is there, but I have no money to expand by myself. So in order to expand, I then contact an investment bank to help take me public. Taking me public means I will now trade on the stock exchange. The stock exchange is like an institution where people can buy and sell stocks and other financial instruments. So, what in the process of taking me public, they will determine for me the amount of shares that I will have that the entire company has. So, what a share represents or stock represents is ownership in a company. So, if you have one share of Dangote, it means you're a part owner in Dangote, no matter how small. If you have stocks in any company, it means you're an owner in that company, no matter how small. So you're entitled to dividends. Dividends means your your share for your share of profits in a business. So for example, Dangote makes say 100 million per year. So the amount they decide to pay out to their shareholders is what is called dividend. So guys, for time's sake, I think you should all put your questions somewhere. So after the first section, I'll give the room for questions. Then you all can ask your questions. Then let's just get ahead with the presentation. After the section, you can ask your questions. I can see a lot of questions. I'll answer them after we're done with the section. So passive income is income that requires little or no effort. So if I buy a share, I don't have to run the company, I don't have to do anything, but at the end of the year, they pay me dividends. If I own rental property, I don't have to physically go there every day to check on it, but at the end of the month, they pay me rent. That's passive income. Now you have earned income as well. Earned income is your regular 9 to 5 income, the bonus that comes from that. So say I'm a laborer when I go to work, that's earned income. I'm a government worker when I go to work, that's earned income. My pension is earned income. Sorry. Then the last type of income we have is capital gains. To explain what capital gains simply means appreciation in value. And this will only be realized when you sell it. Of course, you know it's appreciating, but it will only be realized when you sell it. So, for example, you buy a land, all things being equal, in the coming years, it's going to be worth more. You say you buy a land for 100,000, the next coming years, it's worth 150. The 50 over the 100 is capital gains. Now, you're probably wondering, why do we have to know all of this? The reason is these three incomes are taxed differently. And I don't know if all of you are familiar with Steve Jobs, but if you are familiar with Steve Jobs, if you're not familiar with Steve Jobs, he's the most famous amongst the three founders of Apple. He founded it with his friends. If you use an iPhone, so he was founder of the company with his two friends, but he's the most famous one. So he was very notorious for having a basic salary at the end of the year of $1 for the whole year. But what he then did was, at the end of the year, instead of having cash, he used to receive stock compensations. And we remember we said stock falls under passive income. So he used to receive stock compensations as a salary instead of cash or earned income. Now, you're wondering why this is happening, I'm guessing. The reason is because passive income, earned income, and capital gains are all taxed differently. In Nigeria, your salary, which is earned income, I keep referencing that, is taxed at 7% on the first 300,000, 11% on the next 300,000, 15% on the next 500,000, 19% on the next 1.6 million, 21 on the next 3.2 million, and then you have 24 on the next 6.4 million. Now, whereas you have um capital gains, which is taxed at a flat rate of 10%. What does this mean? If you have a salary of 3 million, the first 300,000 in the 3 million for earned income now would be taxed at 7%. Then the next 300,000 will be taxed at 11%. Then the next 500,000 will be taxed at 15%, and so on and so forth until 24 if you have an income that gets to that level. Whereas if you have an asset that appreciates in value of 3 million, which is capital gains, if you sell it, you pay a tax of 10% only. Also, for dividends, withholding tax is 10%. So if you receive 3 million in dividend payments, you you will pay 10% of that, which is 300,000. Where if you had received that amount in salary, you would have to pay 7% on the first 300,000, 11% on the next 500, on the next 300, 15 on the next 5, 19 on the next 1.2, and so on and so forth, which would have accumulated to a tax liability far higher than that where you have capital gains and passive income, which is the reason why a lot of corporate executives abroad, mostly in America, choose not to receive cash. Instead, they go for stock compensations. Taxes on capital investments are much, much lower than earned income, which is why if you follow the news, you find out a lot of people complain that the rich aren't paying as much taxes as the middle class and the low income earners. The reason is because all the middle everyone in the middle class and the low income earners only have earned income. And earned income pays the highest proportion of tax. Whereas if you have passive income and capital gains, you're taxed at a very, very low level. Even here in the UK, you're taxed for the lowest income bracket, you're taxed 20%. For the medium income bracket, you're taxed 40%, and the highest, you're taxed 45%. Whereas capital gains is 28 or 20%, depending on the type of property that you own. Residential properties like houses are residential properties like houses are taxed at 28%, whereas stocks are taxed at 20%. So if you have passive and capital gains, passive income and capital gains, you ultimately pay less in taxes than you do when you have earned income. So I think that is all. So what this is saying is whenever you have cash, whenever you're willing to invest, or whenever you're willing to put your money in, make sure you're putting your money into an asset that gives you more income than expenses. You should try to reduce your expenses as much as possible and try to shift your income from earned income into passive income and capital gains as much as possible. So with that, we've come to the end of the first section. Let's take questions now. So I'll be waiting for you. Trying to. Okay, so Someone said, "What's the difference between a share, stock, and a bond?" So, like I said, guys, you can put your questions in the chat now. I'm going to take questions before. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I try my best to keep my hair as wavy as possible. So, someone said, "What's the difference between a share, stock, and a bond?" Well, the thing is, while a share represents shares and stock are actually the same thing, they're not different. They're one thing, and what they mean is you're an owner in that company. So if I have a share in Dangote, I'm a part owner in Dangote. If I have a stock, they're the same thing. It represents ownership in a company. That's what shares and stocks are. But bonds, on the other hand, a bond is a debt instrument. So what bond means is when a company issues out bonds, it's just trying to raise money for itself without giving you ownership in the company. If a company issues stocks, it means it wants more owners. It trades funds for ownership. It means that it gets money from you, but then you become an owner in the company. But if you have bonds, bonds means you're not an owner, but then you're entitled to interest per month. So I'm waiting for your questions. I'm waiting for your questions. Once it's 7:35, we go on to the next section. Um Someone said they don't get the explanation. I'm assuming you mean for stocks, bonds and okay, very good question. So for the stocks, bonds, and what you have and shares, like I said, stocks and shares mean the same thing. What is share and stock means? If I say I have one share, I'm an owner in that company, and at the end of the year or quarterly, sometimes they pay quarterly, I am entitled to dividends. If I own a bond, I am not an owner in the company, but the company pays me interest depending on the arrangements that I have that the bond has. Sometimes it's every month, sometimes it's every quarter, sometimes it's every year, depending on the company and the bonds they issue. So that's why bond is categorized as a debt instrument, being that what it means is that the company owes you money. So at the end of the tenure of a bond, because all bonds have tenors, at the end of the tenure, they will pay you the price that you paid for the bond. Whereas because um you're an owner instead of a share, they don't ever buy it back unless the company goes private. It means you're a perpetual owner. I hope that answers your question. So, can companies pay their workers with shares? Yes, they can. It's actually a very common thing with private companies to have parts in almost all private companies that have been in existence for a long time. The ownership is usually divided between the founders of the company and company staff. So then that also means that you have a right to the company profits. Good example of this is Fidelity Investment Management, one of the largest and oldest asset managers. The founding family owns 49% and staff and other management owns 51%. So yes, it is very possible for private companies to give their staff ownership in the company. So let's move on to pathway to financial freedom. What you're to expect from this section is basically how to stay on top of your finances. Things you need to do to stay on top of your finances is what this section is all about. So now the first thing is budgeting. You need to have a budget. So what is a budget? A budget is basically a quantitative plan. It's what you intend to do, but in numerical form. So the way you have I intend to go out tomorrow, in your budget you have movies or something like that under expenses. So what your budget has is income, expenses, and savings. Now, if you're in a bad situation, you don't know what you, even if you're not in a bad situation, you need to keep yourself under check. Sorry. If you're in a, it doesn't matter if you're in a bad situation, becoming more financially sound is never a bad idea. So for this purpose, you need a budget. So what you do if you've never had a budget is for you to detail in your budget. You can do this in Excel on a piece of paper. It doesn't really matter. What matters, like I said before, is the accountability and discipline and accountability. Just to get a bit off track here, I'm actually working with a fintech firm now that's trying to link mental health and money management, where they found out that mental health issues actually tend to make people spend more, in the sense that when they're sad they tend to spend more. They tend to impulse buys happen a lot. When you don't feel good about yourself, you tend to eat. When you're sad, you do all sorts of things. So having a budget prevents all of this, in the sense that you now have something to hold yourself accountable. You can then say, oh no, I've gone past my budget for the month. Now, how do you know? How do you prepare your budget if you don't know the things that are going to go in there? So, what you have first is your income. So, you detail all your income sources. You have it there, you add it up, you then say, this is my income. Then you have your expenses. Now, you should split your expenses into mandatory and voluntary. Now, what are your mandatory expenses? The things you can't do without, which is your rent, except you want to move into a new apartment, your rent, your feeding, these things go under mandatory. Your transportation, things that you cannot live without. These are the things that go under mandatory. Then you now have voluntary. Now, just to give you like an advice, in your journey to financial freedom, you have to separate your needs from your wants. That's a very blurred line for a lot of individuals. Having They can't separate needs from wants. So you have people saying, "Oh, I need that new shoe. I need that." No, you don't. If you do, so you have to separate needs from wants. If you can't, you're always going to overextend yourself financially. So being able to say, "This is what I need, this is what I want, but then this is my budget and I can't go beyond it." So you have to separate your income from you have to separate your expenses into mandatory and voluntary. So this is what you have here. So once you do that, you can then categorically say, okay, I have my income, I have my expenses. So you then net it off against each other to find out how much you have left. I've been there before, so I can promise you that a lot of people, they don't have anything left. The money goes as it comes. It goes even before it comes. I went to Laura, like I said. It's your founder that used to take all of my money. She just rubs my head and then all my money is gone. So so you need to separate your needs from your wants. I did not need her, but I wanted her, so she took all my money. So make sure you guys have your needs from your wants. You just need to be alive. You don't need to have Victoria as a friend. So once you do that, you then need to have in your budget as well, you need to have savings because you have to save as an individual. The reason why you have to save will be shown in the next slide. Even if you don't have your even if you don't have any savings left, like I said, you have to net your expenses against your income. So once you find out that okay, there's nothing left, it's for you to then look at your voluntary expenses and say, okay, so where am I spending money on that I shouldn't be spending money on? The chocolate that I'm buying every day. And sometimes, like myself as a case study here, because when I worked with like I said, I work with a mental health fintech firm. Sometimes it's not even you don't even need much to actually manage your expenses. It's all about being conscious. Sometimes it's just unconscious spending. You actually don't need it. So like every time I go out to the store, I've stopped now. I used to buy Mars and Twix for no reason. I wasn't even hungry. It's just I just went there and I just get it. But if you have a budget that says this is how much I spend on groceries, you can then hold yourself accountable, which is the whole point of having a budget. Holding yourself accountable and being able to plan. Like I said, I'm working with a mental health firm. So one of the things they need to keep in check is they found out that planning your day ahead helps you feel better. So if you have your budget, you don't have to stress about what should I buy, what should I not buy. All of these things are in your budget and you can easily plan for it and with it. So you have to have your savings, even if there's nothing there, you then have your column as savings empty in your notebook or your word pad or your Excel. Then you look at your voluntary expenses on how can I reduce this. So if it's friends that you go out with, that I shouldn't go out with these people anymore. I'm becoming financially I'm not financially prudent when I'm around them. So what does it having a budget will not only serve you financially, but can also be something that can boost you mentally. Because I don't know about you, but anything anything you do and you do right tends to make you feel good. I want all of you to try this for the next couple of days and start your day. Immediately you wake up, lay your bed, and you see how you feel for the next couple of days. So beyond the financial health that it gives you, it also gives you great mental health planning, especially if you stick with it. So the fact that you see yourself keeping yourself in check will boost your mental health cycle, will boost you psychologically. So you then, like I said, you determine how much you have left to deduct, and you then make the conscious effort to reduce your expenses, your voluntary expenses, and then add to your savings. So a simple template that you can use here, if you can see on this, you should be able to see on the screen is the 50-30-20 rule, which is you spend 50% on your needs, you spend 30% on your wants, and you have the remaining 20% on your savings. We've identified our needs from our wants. Do you know what? Just to reiterate, our needs are the things we can't do without. Your rent, your electricity bill, your transportation, those things you can't live without. Your wants, Black Panther 2, Victoria for me, because I still want her. Then 20% on your savings. So this template is a very easy thing to use because it makes it, like I said, it's very simplified. You can just immediately your money comes in. So what I recommend for you is to automate that process of saving. It's much easier to do without seeing the money. It's harder when the money comes in and then you have to say, oh, I have to save this amount. So if you talk to your bank or you automate it from your app, I don't know if you guys can do that in Nines, but like here, you can where you set up your account, immediately the money comes in at a particular date, it sends the money to another account. So once you've identified your savings account, you automate the process. So, like I said, this is just a template. You can adjust it to suit your own financial situation. We're all in different financial situations, and baby steps count. Doesn't matter if you start with one, with two. The fact that you start to hold yourself accountable with your budget, you see your expenses, you reduce your expenses, even if it's by 100 naira per month, you can then improve on it. So the next thing you need to do is create an emergency fund. Now, what's an emergency fund? From the name, you can guess what an emergency fund is. It's a fund for emergencies. Now, this is what you should be saving towards. This is what you should be saving towards. Having an Just to see here, what you use an emergency fund for is to protect yourself against unforeseen circumstances. Say you someone in your family falls terribly ill, they need um medical attention that's immediate. Imagine if you have no savings, no emergency fund, there's not what can you do? You have to start going for a loan, wait for your next paycheck. What if the hospital doesn't take them in? What if you lose your job? This is the reason why you need an emergency fund. So an emergency fund should be able to cater for 3 to 6 months of expenses, which is why you can't have an emergency fund if you don't have a budget. If you have a budget, you then know how much you spend per month. So you can then create a savings that says, oh, okay, should anything happen to my job for the next 4 to 6 months that I'll be job hunting, I have money to take care of me. But if you don't have your expenses documented, you don't know how much you spend, or you're irrational with your spending, where do you go from there? You could be out of money from in the next month. Another reason why an emergency fund is essential is because of investments. People tend to panic when the price of their investments go down. So you buy a stock, tomorrow the stock market crashes, the real estate, you buy land, the real estate market crashes the next day. What do? A lot of people panic and sell in this period, whereas this is something that's almost going to happen throughout your lifetime at least 3 times. At least 3 times. So the market goes up, the market goes down, it happens. But if you have an emergency fund that says, okay, your investment crashes the next day, you don't need the money. You have your emergency fund to take care of you, so you're not panicking. So an emergency fund creates a cushion for you in times of uncertainty with regards to your investments, in times of uncertainty with regards to your job, or if you ever find yourself in need of in an emergency, as the name says, emergency fund. So the one thing you should also always do is try to pay yourself first. What do I mean by paying yourself first? In the real sense of it, almost everyone, me included, pays everyone but themselves. Immediately your paycheck comes in, you go to watch the movies at the cinema. You've paid Viva Cinemas. Here it's Bradford Cineworld. You go to buy Nike Dunks. You've paid Nike. You subscribe. You've paid MTN. Over the course of the month, with your paycheck, you pay everyone but yourself. So the question is, how do you pay yourself? You pay yourself by investing. You pay yourself by saving. And investing can be in you can invest in an asset like we talked about before. Make sure it's an actual asset. You can invest in an asset. You can invest in yourself. What does it mean to be investing in yourself? It's paying for that gym subscription. I don't know about you, but healthier body, healthier mind. Working out for me has put me in a better psychological headspace. If that's not it for you, it's fine. It's paying for you to learn. It's paying for you to spoiling yourself, Cole. It's paying into your savings account. That's what it means to pay yourself. It's paying for a new course to learn. That's what it means to pay yourself. Paying for a school that teaches you a skill that you can monetize. That's paying yourself first. So instead of paying everyone but yourself, make sure you pay yourself first. So once you have an emergency fund, what pay yourself first means is immediately the money comes in, you move it over to your emergency fund. If you've gone past emergency fund and now you're building your investment fund or you're investing, you move your money straight to your investments. As I said, please make sure you have an emergency fund before you start investing. If not, you run the risk of suboptimal investing. Suboptimal in the sense that you make less money than you should from your investments because you may tend to panic. So make sure you always pay yourself first. How can you pay yourself first? Move money into your savings account. Move money into your investment account. Invest in yourself, learn that new skill, go to the gym. Yeah, I like this question. So how much are we earning after removing all of this? I won't lie, you're not earning much, but you see, if you're a fan of philosophy, Buddha said, bit by bit, the pot becomes full. It's not necessarily about the result as of yet. It's about putting in the right structure and the right work ethic. If you can't manage 10,000, you can't manage, yes, gym is life. If you can't manage 10,000, you're very unlikely to manage 100,000. I because I can't put my client's business out there, but I have people who I've met where when they were earning 40,000, it was not enough. Now they are earning 200,000. It's still not enough. I've talked to people who can account for 100,000 naira. Where, if you say, where exactly did this go? He or she doesn't know, or they or them doesn't know. So it's more about setting up the structure than and getting yourself in the habit before you do start making that huge amount. Because when you do, it's still going to be the same thing. You're still going to overextend yourself. And like I said, everything starts little by little. You don't go to the gym today and start. You will, because I did when I first went into the gym. The next day, I was checking myself in the mirror, saying, "Yeah, I can see that it's burning." You haven't burnt anything. Maybe over the course of 1 month, you might not even burn anything. But if you stick with it, you've identified that this is the right process, this is what I should do, and you stick with it over time, you will see the results. As you learn to carry heavier weights, as you learn to do the right form, you start to see results on your body. So as you learn to discipline yourself and as you learn to hold yourself accountable over time, you will eventually get there. And like I said, paying yourself first isn't just putting money into your savings, which you should do all the time. Paying yourself first also involves upskilling yourself. So as you're saving and you're upskilling yourself, it's only a matter of time before you get that higher pay. If not at your current company, at another company or your own company, who knows? So the next thing is pay your bills on time. So we're kind of working through the structure of what you do after you. So you have your budget, then you have your emergency fund. You make sure you pay yourself on time. You pay into your emergency fund. If you do have, you put your money into skilling yourself up. So what's next? You pay your bills on time. That's what's left. You have to pay your bills on time. I remember, like I said, uni, where I immediately the money comes in, they send me money, I'm gone. It's everything else comes after. Then you can't subscribe at the end of the month. You're having to borrow money from MTN because these were the bills on time at the time. It's not like I was paying rent. Thank you, mommy and daddy. So pay your bills on time. Those are the bills I was facing that time. So now as an adult, you probably do a lot more by yourself. So before you get yourself into that tight situation where you start having to before please guys write your questions down so I can answer them at the end of the session. So at the end of this section. So if you leave your bills to the end of the month, chances are you can't afford them by the end of the month, especially if you are unconscious with your spending and you haven't implemented your budget. So, and then the fact that you leave it there, you might be tempted. But then if you pay your bills immediately, so your money comes in, you move money into your emergency fund as per your budget, you pay your bills immediately. Now you know how much you actually have to ball away. You've done your savings, you've paid your bills, do anything you want to what you have left. But make sure you pay your bills on time. If not, you might regret that at the end of the month. Now, I'm aware that a lot of us here are Nigerians, but I believe there's also a lot of I can see your comments. Don't worry, I'll answer your questions at the end of the section. Check your credit score. Like I said, I'm aware that a lot of us here are Nigerians, but I believe there are also there's a few people from the UK here on the session. So check your credit score. Now, what's a credit score? Credit score is basically a metric that assesses how creditworthy you are, how likely you are to pay back the loan that you take up, and how likely you are to pay back the loan that you take up. That's exactly what the credit score is. So this score will be based on previous um how you've handled debt or loans previously. These are the things that will determine your credit score. So if you have a high credit score, you'll be easy if you have a high credit score, the bank will easily give you a loan. And then they will give you also, yeah, a lot of people move from Nigeria to the UK in the last 2 years. So if you're coming to the UK, you need to know what your credit score is. So also it depends on how well you've utilized as I said before, it depends on how well you've utilized credit before, debt and loans before that will determine your credit score. And aside easy access to loans, what what another thing credit score helps you with is, as you all know, I think you've all heard that higher risk means higher reward. So if the bank is going to give you a loan and you have a low credit score, it means they are taking a higher risk. And as such, they will charge you higher interest. So you not only risk um having a lower chance of getting a loan if you have a low credit score. It also means if you do eventually secure credit, you will pay higher interest. And here where a significant amount of the purchases are based on credit, wow, I feel sorry for you because you have to pay if you mostly you buy on mortgage, you buy a car the same way, a lot of things, almost anything you can think of that requires significant investment you buy with credit. If you have a high credit score, you're good to go. The charges for you won't be that high. But if you have a low credit score, it will take some effort and probably someone else vouching for you to secure credit, and you have to pay higher interest. And then you have a debit. In Nigeria, we almost always have a debit card. Here in the UK, you have both debit and credit, depending on if you don't have a good credit score, you can't get a credit card. No one will give it to you. So to get a credit card, you have to have a good credit score. Or else, if you do secure a credit card and you have a low credit score, the APR on that credit card will be very, very high. We'll see what APR is towards the end of this. So the next thing you need to do is check your credit report. So what your credit report is it shows you an in-depth analysis of how they've arrived at your credit score. Now, what does this how does this have an why should you do this if you already know your credit score? Because people make mistakes. We're humans after all. So the people who enter the records of your credit report. So basically, what your credit report is your entire history, your entire financial history with regards to loans. Your mortgage is in there, the amount of credit cards you have are in there, the amount of times you secure loans with the credit cards are in there. Anything you do that relates to financial credit will be in your credit report. So you need to see this so you can go through it and check if there are any mistakes. Because you have people who are bearing the same names. You could be junior and your dad was senior. That doesn't appear in your credit report, and then actions that he takes tends to appear on yours. If you have someone who has similar names, or sometimes it's just a basic clerical error that affects your credit score eventually, because once it shows up on your credit report, it will affect your credit score. So you have to check your credit report. So, like I said, your credit report is just the finance history, your financial history with credits, bankruptcy, anything you can think of that relates to you defaulting or taking loans will be in your credit report. So, if you live outside Nigeria, you can access this credit report from the three major bureaus. You have Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. They provide you one per year for free. If you do come to the UK, if you do want to do all of this, or if you are in the UK currently, make sure you spread them out to ensure that you can check yourself periodically. So 3 times a year, maybe in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, end of the year, to ensure no mistakes are made and you're checking yourself. So in Nigeria, like I said, it's not so much as developed, but we do actually have credit scores in Nigeria yet. Although a lot of banks haven't adopted it, but we do have credit scores and we have people that can provide you with your credit report. So any credit bureau registered in Nigeria can give you one for free. But I don't recommend all. I recommend CRC credit because it's the most I think it's the first and it's the one that has been the most legitimized because you never know in that country. All of you are too smart and in Sodiki. So you have to be careful. So I recommend this, and they provide you one free one a year. If you're going to take more than one, you have to pay 5,000 for any additional credit report that you may request for. So the next thing is to make sure that you always manage your debt. Now, like I said, Nigeria is not so much a debt economy in the sense that you guys don't use debt that much. But if you do, and or if you're here in the UK, which you ultimately eventually will, you need to make sure you're using debt wisely. And if you do have debt, you don't overburden yourself where it takes too much to pay back. So you have to make sure, again, going back to having a budget. Once you have a budget, you have to impute the interest on your debts or how much you're paying back for debt in your budget. You have to make sure incorporate it into your budget so you know how much you're going to finance back at the end of the month. And in planning your budget, you should make sure that you reduce your expenses so you can increase the amount you use to settle your debts so you can quickly settle off your debts. That is if you are bad with debts, which a lot of people are. Now, debt is divided into two. You have productive and unproductive debt. Any debt you use to consume is unproductive and it's horrible. You shouldn't go near it. So I don't recommend using debt to buy a car. I don't recommend using it to buy a house unless you're renting it out. Debt for consumption is horrible because ultimately you pay more than you have. Now, situations can change. You can use the interest to set off some profits, but all things being equal, never go for unproductive debt. All debt that is used to consume is unproductive debt. Now, how do you know what a productive debt is? Debts that are used to secure guaranteed assets that will be productive. In front of it, I put guaranteed. Don't ever take a loan to start a business. That's the most ridiculous thing you can do in your life. There's no assurance that the business will thrive, and you will nearly kill yourself. Never do that. Say you already have a couple of years strong. You know the market, you know your consumers, you know what you give, you know what you don't give. You're clear, you're solid. Productive debt will then be using the debt to buy an asset. So what you've then done for yourself is you've secured your assets with someone else's money, with the bank's money, and then you can use the interest on the debt to reduce your taxable income. This is a strategy companies use very, very well, because instead of issuing shares where you then have additional owners, they instead take up, or instead of using their own capital to take on additional investments, they instead use the bank's money to buy themselves an asset, increase their value, and then they set off the interest that they pay on the loan against taxable profits to reduce their profits. So what they've done is they've increased their business's value without spending their own money, and then they've also used the interest on that loan to reduce profits. So they've reduced profits and improved their business's value. So like I said, productive debt is the one that you use to buy a productive asset that increases your income. Now, a lot of people cannot manage debt. If you cannot do that, if you cannot do that, no bother going near it. Stick to managing your debt, keep it to the minimum, and use your budget to plan yourself out. Now, investing in your future. I think we've cleared out what this is. Hit that gym this month, all of you. Your excuses are not what's the word I'm looking for. Your excuses are not good enough. Go to the gym. Find extra time to learn an additional skill. If you all know Jim Rohn, he's a motivational speaker, a millionaire in like the 20th century. He said, what's the word I'm looking for? If do more for your, work more on yourself than you do your job. Because if you do your job well, you can make a living. But if you work on yourself more, you can make a fortune. So, in as much as we all have to work to survive, you have to find that additional time to skill up, to do something else to improve yourself. The real money is in providing value. He also said, when you see yourself getting paid a certain amount of money, what you should look at it as is, I'm being paid for the value that I bring. So is it possible for me to add more value to myself? So in that sense, I'm worth more. Now I know all things are not equal. We're not in America, but just to give you a sense that give yourself that time to add more to yourself. It's very, very necessary. So a very good example of investing in your future, if you're out here in the West, is something called a 401k, where your employer helps you invest, in the sense that, so you invest in it with the employer. If you invest to a certain level, they match the amount to a certain percentage as well, and they tell you to choose which investment vehicle you want, and they help you invest that money in that asset or investment vehicle. What we have in Nigeria is mostly pension, so that happens, but the idea remains the same. Invest in yourself, invest in your future. And just like I said, this is something that I need to put as well, is for you to give yourself time to relax as well. It's not investing in your future can be finding out how to relax better. Because for a long time I myself didn't sleep very well, and I found out that I could even nap better. I found out how to nap better and improve my productivity. So investing in your future doesn't only mean um working additional work. It could be finding out investing in your future could be finding out how to maximize your time. Maximizing your time is also sleeping better. If you don't sleep better, you're going to have a less productive day. So it's also in finding out how to rest better, how to be happier. These things are also investing in your future. Also, John D. Rockefeller, the richest man in the 20th century, said, "He who works all day has no time to make money." So you have to give yourself the time to skill up and find out how to offer more value to the public. Now, understanding debit cards and credit cards. Understanding debit cards and credit cards. So, what is a debit card? The difference between the two is simple. Debit is you're using your money. That's what having a debit card is. Debit card is what we all have in Nigeria. You sure can't spend money that is not in your account. That's what the debit card is. Credit card, you can spend money that is not there. So a credit card connects you to a credit line, and the credit line is dependent on the your credit score, which I also said is dependent on how well you've used credit in the past. So that's what a credit card is. A credit card is you can spend money. The money is not there. You can spend it, but you have to pay it back at the end of the month. If you don't, you pay the APR interest on it. So debit and credit, just think of it like that. Debit is for you in the sense that you use the money in your account, whereas credit card is you can use money that you don't have up until the limit that your credit card provider sets for you. So as you can see here, here's a table that shows the differences. Credit cards offer a line of credit to borrowed funds that must be repaid. Very good. Debit card is if you're trying to budget, which I recommend for everyone. I do not recommend people having credit cards if you don't know how to manage debt. It mostly leads them to compulsive buying with money they don't have. So, understanding your credit score. To briefly summarize all that you can see on the screen is understanding your credit score is basically knowing what pushes your credit score up or down. So what pushes your credit score up is make sure you utilize debt efficiently and pay back when it's time for you to pay back. Don't have excessive credit cards. Don't overuse the debt. I recommend using maximum of 30% of the limits that the credit card provider gives you. So if you use your card wisely, you don't overuse the debt, you don't constantly request for more debt, you're going to have a higher credit score and you pay back the ones that you do incur at the right time. That's all it goes into having a good credit score. And likewise, if you pay late, if you're constantly borrowing, all of those things, if you're constantly borrowing, if you're not paying back at the right time, if you are constantly asking for more credit cards, all of these things reduce your credit score. Now, what to do if you don't have a credit score at all? Because that happens. I personally did not have one when I got here, and I've just started the process. What you should do is, first of all, ensure that you don't have a credit score. So, to do that, you need your credit history. Like I said, you can request for one free anytime, at least one free per year from any of the major credit service providers. I use Equifax. Make sure you actually don't have any credit history. You might be surprised paying for gym membership could have got you started somehow. So make sure you don't actually have any credit. Once you you know that you don't have a credit history, you can say for certain that you do not have a credit history, you then begin the process, which is find a credit card provider that doesn't give much. It might be just $50 for the month. Doesn't matter. Make sure you use it and you use it well. Maybe you use 20 out of the 50, you pay back on time, and you do that subsequently. Eventually, the limit will increase. You then have a very good credit score, and then you can then ask for higher credit. Yes, you can have a credit history without knowing. You can, which is why you need your credit report to make sure that you do or you do not. So, what is yes, you can. And also, like I said, they make mistakes. So, they might have made mistakes with someone that got you started on your credit score. So, if you check it, if you're comfortable with it, fine, go ahead. If you're not, you make the complaint. So, what's your APR? Your APR is the amount you'll be responsible to the credit card company on any outstanding balance. Your outstanding balance is the balance you're supposed to pay back that you've not paid back. So, if you don't pay this back, you're going to be charged an APR, which is which varies depending on the credit service provider and probably how horrible your credit score was before securing the credit card. Now, our next slide is introduction to investment. Before we do that, let's take questions. Guys, please put your questions in the chat if you have questions. By 8:10, sorry, 1 hour difference. By 9:20, we'll move on. Um, so I don't see any questions, so we'll push on and maybe we'll have questions at the end of this section. So, introduction to investment. Now, the most allow this question that just came in. Yes, you definitely can. You definitely can separate emergency fund from your savings. There's no rule that is set in stone. That's the thing. So long as these things are just to make you more conscious, but you should always have an emergency fund. If you then wish that you still want to have additional savings after an emergency fund, that's fine. But I encourage you to invest as early as you can once you have your investment fund, once you have your emergency fund and you have your strategy to invest. I hope that answers your question. So the next thing is introduction to investment. As I said before, the what's the word? The myth around investment or the thinking around everyone's investment is, oh, I have to have a million, I have to have so much money before I start investing. This is not true. You don't need to have a lot of money to start investing. You can start little by little as 1,000 naira, you can start investing. The question is then, oh, what can 1,000 naira do? Like I said, habits matter a lot. Habits matter habits matter big time. And there's something called compound interest. We'll learn about the concepts soon next, and you see why it is important. So the next thing is, sorry, here's a list of things that you need to do before you start investing. And if you do these things, your investment journey will be very smooth. And I guarantee you'll have better results than the average Joe. Far better results. Now, the first thing you need to do is you have to have a goal. You have to have a reason why you invest. It's much easier to get somewhere. It's much easier to get somewhere if you know where you're going. It's much easier, which is why you have to have a goal. So once you have a goal, you have to define a plan that gets you to the goal. So what is your goal? It could be you're investing to build a fund for your children's school fees when they come of age. You're investing for retirement to have a retirement fund. You could be investing for any reason. But for whatever, so you should have a goal, because if you don't know where you're going, you know the strategy to you have to invest with a strategy, and you have to invest with an aim. If not, if you don't have an aim, you don't know right or wrong, and then you don't necessarily you don't necessarily have if you don't have sorry exactly, it's much easier to get somewhere when you have a goal. So for example, if you have you're targeting investing for your retirement. I don't know how old we are, but I'm still very, but I still, hopefully, I still have a lot of time to go. So if I'm investing for, say, retirement, that gives me a lot of time. So then I can take on riskier investments compared to someone has um whose investment horizon is like 5 years. That kind of person would not take on risky investments. All his investments would need to be safe investments, because he's looking in the near term, he's looking in the short term, he needs his money very soon. Or someone who is seeking to invest to build a fund for his or her children's school fees. For that, the person won't take on risky investments. So having a goal, depending on what you want to achieve with your investments, is what will determine your investment strategy and the type of assets that you invest in. So the next thing you need to do is prioritize saving money. I know I said you don't need a lot to invest, but you shall have to have money. You can't invest money that you don't have. So you have to save money in order to be able to invest money. I think that goes without saying. Now, understanding the power of compounding. If you never understood compound interest in, I think it was secondary school, maybe J2 or J3, here's a chance to find out that is your math teacher that didn't know what he was doing, and you're actually a very smart student. So here's an example of what compound interest is. So simple interest, say you have we're using this example here. Say you have a principal of 100 and an interest of 1%. What simple interest is then 1% of $100, which would be that will be the interest for every year. $1, $1, $1. That's what simple interest is. Now for compound interest, in the first year, it will be $1. But then what you notice about year two is that the $1 interest has been added to the previous year's value, which then makes it $101. And then that is what the 1% interest would be would be charged upon. The same goes for investing. If you invested 1,000 and the stock market goes up by 10% this year, which it very well can, it's not the end of the year, and the Nigerian stock exchange has gone up over by about 10%. And that's because it had a bad month 2 months ago. Before that, it was up about 11%. So 10% is not an unrealistic return at all. So say you invest 1,000 and it goes up 10%, you have 1,100. It goes up 10% again, you have 1,100 times 10%. And it goes on and on and on like that. And that's not counting if you add any more money over a significant amount of time, that will turn into significant money. That's the idea behind compounding. The reason why you should understand this is so you don't interrupt the process unnecessarily. You don't rush and say, oh, my 1,000 has turned to 1,100 now. I need to take it. Except you have very solid and guaranteed information that it's going to turn to dust the next, which is very unlikely. You should let compounding take its due process, and your value and the value of your asset should appreciate more and more over time. You should also know that risk is involved. The stock market can crash, the real estate market can crash, a company that you buy its bond can default. So all investments carry some form of risk. Now, the best way to reduce that risk, to ensure that that risk is minimized to the lowest value, to the point that it is non-existent, really, I won't lie, is diversification, which is the next thing that you need to know. Diversification is basically diversification is basically I'm not putting my money in one place. That's what diversification is. So if you say um I buy Dangote, I buy Boa, I buy MTN, you're still investing in stocks, but you're diversifying. You're buying different stocks so that all your money is not in one. And if that one goes down, chances are the profits from the other one can cover the losses. You can also diversify outside stocks. You can say, I bought a land here, I bought a land over there, so that if the land prices here go down, the one in the other place is still solid for me. And you can diversify across different assets as well. You can diversify in stocks, you can buy stocks, land, gold. You can buy all of these together. That is what diversification is. If you diversify well over time, the risk you have is practically zero. Because what happens is there's very rarely a situation where all assets will depreciate at the same time. It's near impossible. So if you diversify well, you have no risk except tomorrow. The stock market, all of it can go down tomorrow. But over time, if you have a very good time horizon, which you should have in investments, you should always have a long-term horizon. If you have a very long-term horizon, you can't lose your money. So keep costs low. Now, one thing I forgot to mention here is instead of diversifying yourself, you can choose to diversify by using mutual funds. What are mutual funds? Mutual funds are um money managers that decide to pool, like I said, mutual from a lot of people, from banks, from individuals, businessmen, but whoever has money, they pool all that money together. And then the mutual fund has a money manager that invests this money in a wide range of securities. Another way is you can buy an ETF on the stock exchange that is invested in a wide range of that covers a wide range of stocks or whatever asset class. So what an ETF is it's basically a bundle of multiple stocks. Depending on if it's a index ETF, it's a bundle of multiple stocks. ETFs can comprise of more than just stocks. It can be different precious metals. It can be um, gold, silver, anything really merged into one product. So what that does for you is instead of you having to diversify by yourself, picking different assets, the ETF does it for you in the sense that the ETF holds a wide range of things. So you can just buy that and then you're diversified just like that. You don't have to approach a stockbroker to invest. There are apps for you. There's Chaka, there's eToro, there's I'm trying to look for this one that I just started to use. Trove. Trove is a very nice one, very good interface where you just go and buy things, buy stocks, ETFs, whatever you want to buy, and diversify by yourself. I mean, diversify through the assets, through ETFs or mutual funds. So mutual funds come with expenses. Even these apps, they come with expenses. So it's up to you to make sure you do your research and you make sure that you keep your costs low. Especially with mutual funds, they tend to um ask for unrealistic sums. Some of them ask for very unrealistic sums of money. And once you put the amounts they ask for against the profits they tell you that they will generate for you, you find out that it's not worth it and there are better options. It could be that they still make profit for you, but then there are other money managers that give you that charge you less, but then they don't generate as much as a return as they do, but they don't generate a return as much as other people do, but because they charge you less, the profit you make from them is higher. So it's up for you to check your options, to weigh your options. So you also have to be disciplined when you invest. Like I said, through your budget, you say disciplined, you invest a steady amount every month, and you stay disciplined when your investments go down. Because at a particular point in your life, I got I genuinely believe, especially if you live a long life, I hope we all do, it will go down at least 2 or 3 times. So it's for you to stay disciplined with your emergency fund and your budget in that period and stick with your investments, which is also why you should have a plan. So if the assets going down is not in your plan or it doesn't go along with the time frame in your plan, you can then sell. But if you have a plan that goes over an extended period of time, you have no reason to panic. So just stay disciplined and ride the wave. Like I said, the wave comes at least 3 times in the average individual's lifetime. Now, think like an owner. This is the biggest issue when it comes to stocks. This is particularly for a stock or even a bond. The reason is most people look at stocks and think it's just something that you buy that goes up or down. That's what they think a stock is. If I buy it, it's supposed to go up or down. What a stock really is, so sorry, that was a mistake. So what a stock really is it represents part ownership in a business. People don't know that. They think, like I said, what they think of the stock is it's just something that's supposed to go up or something that may come down. That's not what stock is. Stocks represent part ownership in a business. It means you're an owner in a business. So once you think of stocks like this, it makes it it makes it easier for you to safeguard your money because you then start to think like, oh, okay, as an owner, would I like to own this business? Some people buy stocks. If you buy stocks on the hope of thinking, oh, it will go up, nah, that's not how stocks work. Eventually, it might work for you for a bit of time, but eventually you lose your money. You have to think like a stock represents ownership in a business. So whenever you want to buy a stock, you don't look at the stock, you don't look at that, you look at the business. So you look at, say you're evaluating Dangote, you say, oh, Dangote is the leader in its industry. It has done well for the past 10 years. The management is solid. The financial representation, that's their financial statements, is honest. They don't lie. This is a good business. Then I would like to buy its stock. That's the way you should think of stocks. You're thinking, I am now an owner in this business. Is this business worth owning? Another example is you should think of it like a farm. Now, if you buy a farm, if someone comes to you tomorrow and says, oh, you bought the farm 1 million, and he comes to you and says, will you sell this farm to me for 200,000? Except if the farm has been doing poorly, that's when you sell. But if the farm is doing exactly what you want it to do, you're going to look at him like, is this guy an idiot? Does he not know that I know the value of what I have? That's exactly the way you should look at your stock. It's not just something that is going up. Even if it's gone up, you need to look at the business to assess that, okay, is this still a financially sound business? If it is, then that means it can go higher and there's no reason to sell. And just because someone says it will go up does not mean it will go up. Like I said, you have to think of it like a farm. If the farm is doing well, it's producing the right crops, it's the land is still fertile, you still want to own the farm. That's the same way you should own your stock. If it's still doing well, you still need to own the farm. The only time you think about selling your farm is if it has consecutive bad months. Every now and then it has the dry season comes, oh, it's just the dry season, it will go back up again. But then when you have 3 consecutive dry seasons, you're starting to think, is the soil not more fertile? You test it and then you find out, oh, it's no more fertile. I think I should sell. That's the same way you look at your company. You think if it's still going good, there's no reason to sell. And if it's gone bad, there's no reason to panic just yet. It might just be the tides, might be new technology, they might still survive. So it's for you to look at what you always look at is the fundamentals, not the price. You look at the company, not the stock. You look at, is this a good company? Would I like to be an owner in this company? That's what you should think of when you're buying stocks. What makes this easier is the next thing, which is understand the business that you invest in, because it makes it easier for you to evaluate the business. If you don't understand the business you're investing in, how do you evaluate the business? How do you know if it is doing right or it is doing poorly? If you're just buying into the hype, you cannot evaluate it. You don't know when to sell, you don't know when to buy. So if you understand the business you're investing in, it makes it easier to evaluate if you have a good deal. Now, a lot of you won't be individual investors. I don't recommend that you are. Like I said, I recommend you buy ETFs or index funds. We'll look at what those are soon in the next section. Oh no, sorry. We'll look at those under asset classes here. If you do that, in doing that, you still have to understand the people, you still have to understand the ETF you're buying. So for example, you buy the NSC index. What that means is you're buying all the companies listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. You know you're safe. So long as Nigeria continues to do well or Nigeria doesn't do too bad, your money is safe. If you buy the S&P 500, you know you're buying the 500 largest companies in America. So you have to understand that as well. If you're going to diversify through that medium, you have to understand what you're buying. So then it makes it easier for you to evaluate them. So what we have next is asset classes. But before we do that, I would like to ask if anyone has any questions. 2 minutes, please. Should we stop here and continue the session tomorrow? I don't think. Yes, you can have a financial expert as yours. I recommend if you are not a finance person yourself, you have a financial expert throughout your financial journey. This is something that all businessmen who do not have a finance background have. They have people who are asset managers, who are professional financiers as their guide in doing these things. So, yes, I recommend that. I highly recommend that you have a financial professional in your finance journey. Um, should we continue the session tomorrow, or we could go on because we're almost at the end. We literally have just 4 more slides. So should we round up tonight, or do you want us to continue tomorrow? Please put your thoughts in the chat.
No, if we have about four more slides, I think we can actually just finish up.
Okay. So now we have where we are is asset classes. What asset classes are is the various things you can invest in. Victoria, I've just had one reply, and the person wants tomorrow. Um, Mary Jane, we actually have just 5 slides left, so please bear. Oh, someone else also said tomorrow. Excuse me while I communicate with the founder. So
Okay, I
let's go.
think they would want to be energetic enough and they are alive while they listen. So most
Okay.
people are probably tired already. You get. So maybe we can extend it to tomorrow, and the questions too can also come in tomorrow. What do you think?
Um. Well, now they're
Okay.
saying
Okay, I think some
now
people are
there's
saying we should leave it
yeah.
for today.
Continue.
I mean, like we should finish it today.
Yeah. Maybe we can then make a question session maybe tomorrow if they are willing. Maybe on Twitter space. So asset classes now. Asset class is just to show you the various instruments that you can invest your money in. Now you have bonds. I explained what bonds are before, but let's go over it again. Say I'm a company and I issue bonds. What that means is I'm telling you borrow me money. So if you're a bondholder, it means you've borrowed somebody money, usually a company or the government. That's what being a bondholder means. It means you're an owner of debt. You've given debt to somebody, you've issued debt to somebody, and now they're paying you interest depending on the arrangement of the bond. It might be per month, per 4 months, per 6 months, however you arranged it. So that's what a bond represents. It's an instrument of debt. So if you hold a bond, you're paid interest up until the end of the contract of the bond, and then you're paid back the money. So you give them money to do whatever they want. They pay you interest depending on the arrangement, and then at the end of the contract, they pay you back your money. That's what the bond is. Now you also have mutual funds. Like I said before, mutual funds is just where you have a firm that pulls money together from different people, and then the money manager of the firm allocates the money or buys different investments with it. So the way you have stocks and bonds, the money manager will invest in a wide range of stocks or a wide range of bonds. That's what mutual funds is, pulling money together from different people to invest in different assets. That's what mutual funds are. It's very similar to exchange traded funds in the sense that exchange traded funds also offer you exposure to a wide range of assets. But unlike mutual funds, where exchange traded funds are on the stock exchange like normal stocks too. So mutual funds are not on the stock exchange. You buy that from the firm at the end of the trading day. So the value of mutual funds are determined at the end of the trading day. But ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, they are trading on the stock exchange like normal stocks every day. So assuming there's a mutual fund that invests in all of the stocks in Nigerian stock exchange or African stock exchange, the value for that mutual fund will be determined at the end of the day. You buy it at the end of the day. But for exchange traded funds, you that if the exchange traded fund is for all the stocks on the stock exchange as well, the price of that exchange traded fund, ETFs is the same thing as exchange traded fund. The price of the ETF, you can buy it anytime because the ETF is on the stock exchange as well. So you can buy it anytime and you can see the price move up and down during the day. Now, stocks. We've already talked about stocks. Stocks are ownership in a business. If you have a stock, you're an owner in that business and you are entitled to dividends. So you now have alternative investments. What are alternative investments? Alternative investments are just investments that fall outside the normal categories of investments that we have, which are stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, and bonds. So under alternative investment, you have real estate. We all know what real estate is. If you buy land, you rent it out, you're doing real estate. If you buy just land, you're doing real estate. An introduction that has happened in recent years is the way you have mutual funds that pool money together, you have that now for real estate. But you have the way ETFs pool money together to buy something, you have that for real estate as well, which is now called REITs. REITs, which is Real Estate Investment Fund. So they pool money together and they use it to buy real estate, and it's listed on the stock exchange as well. So that's what the money is for. They pool money together from different people, use it to buy real estate, and they list it on the stock exchange. That's what real estate REITs are. You have hedge funds. Now, hedge funds are not common in Africa. They're common in the Western world generally. The way I said you analyze a business for determining whether to invest, hedge funds are generally not like that, in the sense that because the stock market involves a lot of permutation and calculation, mathematics in a way can be applied to make profit. So hedge funds are generally, unlike you have mutual funds where the background of these people are in finance, investments, or they've worked in finance and investment for an extended period. So they evaluate the business to determine whether to buy or sell. Hedge funds are not like that. What determines buying or selling for hedge funds is mathematics. So they study the price action of stocks on the stock exchange and determine whether to buy or to sell. That's the difference between hedge funds and mutual funds. You also have private equity. Now, private equity is similar to mutual funds, but the difference is in mutual funds don't take control of the company. They just buy the shares and the management remains the same. But in private equity, the investors take control of the company. Once they invest in you, they buy you. Most of the time, they fire the management, install new management, and take over this for an extensive period of time and sell it later to generate a profit. So the difference here is mutual funds, ETFs, mutual funds don't take control in the company. They just buy the stock. Private equity actively takes control of the company they buy. A lot of time they take it off the stock exchange. What that means is they make it a private company instead of a public one. They make it a private company and then they um they make it a private company, which means it's no longer on stock exchange and they actively manage it. You then have commodities. Commodities are anything you can think of. You'd be surprised that sugar trades on the stock exchange. Oil, anything you can think of as a commodity. Almost all things trade on the stock exchange like a commodity. So I've bought sugar, I've bought oil. You have wheat as a commodity. Anything you can think of trades as a commodity. Wheat was actually a very profitable investment this year if you bought it early in the year, because the Russian war with Ukraine meant that supply of wheat to the rest of the world was cut short. So if you had wheat as an instrument on the if you bought wheat on your stock exchange platform or anywhere, the price would have gone up and you'd have made a significant profit. So the strategy I would recommend for you guys, if you do insist to invest, what I recommend for you is dollar cost averaging. What dollar cost averaging simply means is you invest a particular amount at a particular time every month till the end of your life or till the end of your investment career. So instead of trying to time the market thinking, oh, should I invest this month? Everything has gone down, there's no need for that. It's for you to pick the amount you want to invest and invest this amount consistently. That is what dollar cost averaging is. So you determine the time you want to invest. So you do this consistently at that time interval. So if you come to the end of that section, like I said, the money rules section is nothing but just a few rules that I've compiled for you to have with regards to your money, which is, sorry, spend less than you earn, always have an emergency fund, pay yourself first, invest in educating yourself, learn to make money work for you, reinvest your returns into more investments, and only use debt to buy productive assets. That's what we have Yeah. If you're not a professional, the best investment strategy is dollar cost averaging. It saves you the headache and you don't have to worry. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to do anything. Over time, your investments will grow. So, with that, we've come to the end of the session. Thank you for joining me. As you can see, this is my handle on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me and ask any questions you might have. Ask me anything. There's no such thing as a weird question or should ask me anything you think. Even tag me on Twitter and say, "What is money?" I'll answer you there. That's what the page is for. I appreciate that you came on this financial journey with me. I hope you had a nice time. So I'll talk, like you guys said it's late, so I'll talk to the um founder we can on how we can structure a question and answers session. I believe you guys would have a lot of questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mimi. I actually appreciate this, and thank you for coaching us. I think some people have some questions to ask, but they'll probably drop it in the community group or they will send a text. So or they'll just I think you should keep sharing your screen so they can see your handle so they can always reach out to you whenever. All right, so you can see it now. So on Twitter and Instagram, it is at Finance Coach. On LinkedIn, it is at Abdulmumeen Ameen. So you can always follow, you can ask questions, no matter the kind of question. There's no such thing as a bad question or a good question. So you can always ask. All right. So thank you so much everyone for joining tonight's webinar. I know it took quite a number of strength, time, and resources. So I just really want to appreciate everyone. And then you mentioned something earlier. You said you really don't have to have so much money to invest or to start investing. So like as a Nigerian, how like what do you advise? What's the amount that you can actually start investing with?
Start with any amount you have. Start with, like I said, it depends. The structure is what's keeping yourself in check is what matters most. Once you start the structure, if you, like I said, you have your budget templates. So assuming you're using the 50, 30, 20 rule, and 20 stands for investment since you've saved up to your emergency fund. So as your income grows, the amount you're investing will grow in line with that amount. The most important
I
thing,
think okay.
the
I
most
think you should be specific because if you say any amount, some people might think, oh, they can invest in 15 naira.
I don't think I don't
So
I don't think any investment platform will. But for you to find out the actually I will check. I do believe there's an investment platform that will allow you start with 15 naira. Because
15 naira.
I promise you, because I know there's one that I know of about I think 100 naira that you start with.
Oh, I think the only one I saw that you could buy shares with 100 naira was this MTN. That time they were doing this whole and buy shares from MTN. But well, I did not believe in it then, Sha.
They are
So,
very
but I don't think I think to get was it great returns, you should actually go higher than that. So I would want you to advise us so that some people might be planning to save towards their first investment now.
yeah.
So what do you advise? Like 20,000, like 10,000?
So like I said, the first thing you need to do is to have your emergency fund. That is very, there's no point jumping into a risky thing where you don't have something to protect yourself. So once you have your emergency fund and you're saving towards, I don't believe in jumping to a particular figure, because I would rather you establish a structure that has you investing over time rather than going for, I'm saving for this amount until I have this amount before I invest, because you would miss out on the compound interest. I'm not saying that is a bad idea, but instead of saving, say you're saving towards your first investment, you're now saving 5,000 for 4 months. Why not invest 5,000 in month one, 5,000 in month two, 5,000 in month three, 5,000 in month four, if you understand what I mean? So instead of
Yeah.
saying I'm going big for, because compound interest will happen on the 5,000 that you invested the first time. Instead of
Okay.
waiting for it to get to the
So
5,000 could have come
accumulate to
500.
20,000. Just save 5,000,
Yeah,
and then
invest.
next month save another 5,000.
Yeah,
Okay,
invest.
I think that actually makes sense. That actually makes sense. Thank you. All right, so I have one more question. So
Yeah,
this question, I don't know why people are shy to drop questions. I mean, we're not seeing you physically.
yeah. Drop
Okay,
your
so they sent that question. I'm sure the person has gotten an answer. So this person is saying, which investments would you advise us to start with, e.g., local and international, e.g., Dangote, Goa, Apple.
I would recommend you to buy a broad index. So it's for you to look up the broad, because what you have is, I do now know the some of these apps that offer it do not offer. I would recommend you buy a mutual fund or an ETF. What a
Okay,
mutual fund is they invest in a wide range of things.
okay,
So you have like the what they call it, Fidelity Bank's money market fund that has produced, as of this point, I think 10% annual returns, and it's not yet the end of the year. So you can invest. What that does for you is Fidelity Bank is managing the money. So you don't actually have to manage the money. You just give them the money and they invest in a wide range of securities for you. And you then tell them when you want to redeem it, preferably never. Just keep growing it until, like I said, you have your plan. So it's for you, whatever you want to do, so long as you're not a professional investor, make sure you invest in a mutual fund or an ETF. What an ETF is a broad class of, under an ETF, you might have 1,000 stocks. So you are not
okay,
exposed to one stock where if it goes down, you're gone. So with a mutual fund, they do the investing for you and they are
okay,
liable if something goes wrong. But then that's why you have to do your research to make sure that these people are actually genuine money. You check them. So a bank as big as Fidelity or a bank as big as Stanbic, you know they are in it for the long run, but you still do your due diligence. So if you invest in their own mutual fund, I know you can walk up to the bank and say, I want to invest in your mutual fund, and then they give you their options. You sign there or whatever. They also have an app that you can say, you download their app, you find the securities they offer. So what you should also always do is invest in a mutual fund or a really broad index so you're not exposed. And like I said, they do the money, they do the management for you, you just get your returns. But you should also compare, because a lot of them charge fees. So it's for you to look at, okay, these people in the past 10 years, they've been generating, say, 12% per year. And then now they are saying they are charging 4% management fee. That brings down your return to about 8% per year. If you look at another asset manager that offers less, that offers say 10%, but they charge their own as 1% management fee. So when you check it against each other, you find out that you have 9% return here over against 8% for the people who generate more. So it's not about just generating more as well. Like I said, I should keep costs low. So you have to make sure that they're not excessively charging you for those returns.
Okay. So, thank you very much. I think that is well understood already, and I personally learned from that because, okay, I think I would also like you to give us. Um, I use Chaka. This is not an advertisement or anything. I'm just saying it. So I use Chaka, and it's quite good, and I can it is easy to use, very easy to use and understand, navigate. You can just open the app and look at the one that people really buy or people really invest in and then also invest. So I'll just go ahead and buy Dangote or buy Boa or something because I'm in the Chaka community group and I see, oh, Dangote is doing well this week. Thank God I bought it. I think there's a name for people like me. So I hear what people are saying about that stock, and I just go ahead to buy shares from it. So
Yes.
I don't know, but now
Now,
with what you said, I think that's a very good what's it called answer, and I'll be able to use that
now
also.
you
But the
mentioned
best,
you mentioned you're excited by the way people are talking. Don't let people's excitement drive you. I don't know if you're familiar with FTX that just crashed. The entire
yeah,
reason is because the entire reason anybody bought that thing was because, oh, FTX is
of
doing
what
well.
people said,
Yeah, they
yeah,
jumped into the hype. Like I said, think like an owner. Doesn't matter
mm,
what any if you own a farm that you know is producing well for you, doesn't matter what anybody else says the price is. It's doing what you want, and then therefore for you it is valuable. So it's not about what people say, it's about okay, I've identified that Dangote is still the leader in its market. You should not be you should not be drawn into the hype of people, and you should not be drawn into price action. Just because something is going up doesn't mean it is right. Sometimes
yeah,
people just don't. If a lot of people buy Dangote shares today, that's what good normal demand and supply in economics. If a lot of people
yeah,
buy Dangote share today, it will go up for no reason. There was an issue in early 2000s where a lot of people were trading. So there's a company that the symbol on the stock exchange is similar to another one, and people said one of them is the hottest thing in tech. So the share price of the useless one went up by over 1000% in a day because
wow,
people people mistook the ticker symbol for the same thing. They
but
mistook it,
oh
so they
wow.
just kept buying. So you should not be drawn into price action or people's chatter. Whenever you buy a stock, it should be because you've looked at the business and you've evaluated that this is a good business. So our Trove is also one I see is very good. But like I said, if you're going to be buying mutual funds, like the likes of Stanbic or what have you, if their app is very good and it's user friendly, there's no reason why you shouldn't use their app. So you just have all your financial tools in the same place. Instead of having multiple, you can just then say, yep, check my bank account, move it into my assets, something. So it depends on you, as I
Okay,
said. All these apps also have different charging fees. So you can look at that as well. Okay, how much are they charging me?
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I think that's all the questions we can take. If you have more questions, you know where to direct them to. Just send
Yes,
them to
bank
me.
says
Send them to
sell
Finance
shares.
Coach. Or send them to Finance Coach on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn at Abdulmumeen Ameen. So thank you so much, Abdul, for coming to coach
Thank you
us.
for having
I
me.
think if we need you to do this some other time, also come. The whole of PHS sends their regards, their well wishes, all of that. And if you are joining us from outside the community, thank you so much for joining us. I think there's a pinned link where you can actually join the community. I think I don't know, is it still pinned? Yes, that is it. So you can just tap the link to join the community if you are interested. Only if you are interested, because we do not accept dormant members. So thank you so much again, Mumin. Ah, okay, I don't
Thank you
want to
for
say what
having
is on my mind.
me. Oh, you tell me after.
Yes, I will. Okay, so thank you, and we've come to the end of this session. Till next time, I hope we have a next one. I actually really enjoyed this. Till next time. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So if you need more guidance, more education, more coaching, just where to go to. All right. Bye everyone. We've overstayed our welcome. This is past 10. We spent 2 solid hours. All right. Thank you. So we're ending the live now.